Hello, my little Liebfrau Milches, and welcome to the Friday edition of Moohead Radio. I'm your host, the big and furry bovine. Joining me on the panel today, Derek Frisbee from DF Sports, and Double P, Peter Powell, who will be talking with me about some Cleveland Browns stuff that has come up that is of interest. It just broke that the Browns were bringing Ronnie Harrison back for one season on a one-year deal so he can get more flagrant penalties called in crucial defensive stand situations. Both Derek and I don't know why we would want him for another year, do we?
Like I told you before the show, I hope this is a guy that they're bringing back for a security blanket at the very most, draft a guy and then have him compete, and then hopefully he's a bubble guy in camp that don't make the team, I hope.
Just the number of things that he did, late hits and flagrant fouls and punching people back, and especially on third down actual holds that cost us and getting thrown out of a game. This type of thing can't persist. It's not a good thing.
It's not him as a player necessarily. He's not the worst, but it's just not worth the risk, like we were saying before.
Right. And he's undisciplined. That becomes a big problem. A viewer shared a story with me that I wanted to share with everybody else. This is off Bleacher Report. And this is an article written by Tim Daniels that dropped today and via The Athletic. And I'll read this to you. An unnamed NFL executive questioned why the Browns gave DeShaun Watson a fully guaranteed $230 million contract after acquiring him from the Texans at a blockbuster trade last month. The executive told Mike Sando of The Athletic on Friday that Watson, who we know faces 22 civil lawsuits, isn't a good fit for head coach Kevin Stefanski. This is an unnamed NFL executive. Here's the quote from an unnamed NFL executive. What DeShaun does best is playmaking, off schedule, throwing deep. All that, which does not strike me as the Stefanski system, the exec said. It may all work out, but he's not the person to give that deal and that power to. You might do that with Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. And even then, you wouldn't like it. I just don't understand. It just reeks of desperation. So, there isn't much to say about this. If you've been in Cleveland, the last, let's go from 1999 to 2002, what, 2030, what is that, 23 years? That sound about right?
I'm bad at math.
Yeah, I think 23, yeah.
23 years. I'd call it desperation. You know something? You're either trying to win or you're trying to lose. I want to just kind of, you know what desperation is? Desperation is signing Jose Ramirez at the last minute and surrounding him with a bunch of neophytes who've never played Major League Baseball. People who are slow midgets, okay? That's what desperation is. That's like throwing one little cookie to the fans to see if you can get them to spend their money on your shitty baseball team. But that's not what the Browns have done, because DeShaun Watson is not the only thing they're throwing money at. The Browns are trying to put together a good football team. You want to talk about desperation? How about the Detroit Lions? You know what desperation is? Desperation is bringing in Jared Goff and saying, we got our guy. It's kind of like, this is my confused Joe Biden look. I know, you really don't know the facts about that. Yeah. You can believe anything that comes out of your own mouth. You can wish something into existence. Jared Goff, he of the spindly legs and underpowered arm, who immediately left Los Angeles in time for them to win a Super Bowl and for the Lions to just suck again. You think they're a little desperate, believing their own bullshit? And now, they're saying, well, why don't we go after Baker Mayfield? So what could they have thought about Jared Goff in the first place? What are they selling their fan base? That is what desperation smells like to me, is when you fart and you believe that it sounds like Beethoven. That would be my definition of desperation. But
well, and even now a lot of people are expecting them, and including myself, for the number 2 pick to be Malik Willis. As much as I love Malik Willis and I think he'll be good, I mean, that's pretty rich.
no, I don't think he's going to be very good. I mean,
He just needs a lot of work. A
a lot of work. For goodness sakes, he played at Liberty. And that's not even the mutual company that does insurance. That's a little Christian school, where people say hosannas. I mean, come on. He's a great athlete. Don't get me wrong. But this is a crazy step.
It would be like taking even less ready version of a Josh Allen at number 1. He needs, like I said, a lot of work. The upside's there. But is Detroit the right place? No.
Well, here's another thing. It's a lot like saying you got a guy with a great arm in single A and bringing him right up to the major leagues.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even a reflection of Malik in a situation like that. It is a reflection of desperation. When you draft somebody like that really high, what you're saying is, man, we are so short at the position. We got to reach. And, the thing that really floors me, unnamed NFL executive, is, first of all, every draft we have reaches being done. And within the league, the owners do reach arounds, but that's another story for another time. Every time you reach for a player, that's a sort of desperation that you're hoped to hitting it big. It's a gamble. Now, with the Browns, what are you really gambling on? We've sucked for all but 2 of 23 years. I mean, what's the gamble? It's Haslam's money. He can do whatever the fuck he wants to do with it. It reeks of desperation. What it reeks of to me is the understanding that whatever it was that we were doing last year, regardless of the injuries, but with the personnel on the field, it wasn't nearly good enough, especially at the wide receiver position. Not nearly good enough. So we're going to try to fix that. And it starts, you got to have somebody who can throw the ball accurately to them. And there isn't a team in the league that wouldn't have done the same thing, given us the similar set of circumstances. You think the New York Jets organization is desperate? And the answer is no. They're just content losing. They'll just continue bringing in whatever guys they reach for in the draft and just say, that's that. It didn't work again.
Drake London.
Huh?
They'll reach for Drake London. They've swung and missed now on Tyreek Hill. They allegedly think they're in on Deebo Samuel, who's not getting traded, by the way. They'll go for Drake London, and they'll go with the sexy pick, even though he's not the best.
And that'll get the fans excited until they realize once again that, it's Sam Darnold time all over again. It's easy to pick players and reach for them and hope. To me, this whole notion of desperation, it's mainly because the desperation is with the NFL executives. I mean, the owners. It's like that escalated quickly. It's like $230 million. $230 million guaranteed to one player. And then the executive says, and this is the real great quote that I will read to you in a different light right now. It may all work out, but he is not the person to give that deal and that power to. It's power, isn't it? Isn't that what it's all about? The size of one's penis as it stands flaccid in a shower? Isn't that what the NFL owners are? A bunch of men trying to pump up the size of their dicks. You don't want to turn over power to any athlete. Scares the hell out of people. But you want to know something? The Lakers went down on LeBron. Okay? They went down. Jeannie Buss got on her knees and Pelinka got on his knees. And they blew LeBron to get him there. You know, you don't hear half the shit about that. What a massive failure that has been in Los Angeles. And ever since Jeannie Buss took over, it's been a remarkable fall from grace. They gave Magic Johnson, the choice of living with AIDS or playing with the current Lakers, and he chose living with AIDS. I don't know what to tell you. It's been a disaster there, a clusterfuck. So, desperation. It happens all the time in sports, desperation. Every single time you see the Brooklyn Nets saying, we're bringing in the big three, it's desperation. We have the money, we're in New York, we're going to spend it all on Kyrie and Kevin Durant. And, Kevin got his titles over there in Golden State, but, Steph and Clay, they were going to get a lot, and Draymond were going to get a lot of the credit. This time, KD, wanted some of the more of the credit. So we'll get him, and then we'll start, searching for everybody. We'll end up with guys who used to play for the Clippers who can't shoot free throws but block a lot of shots, DeAndre Jordan. And we're gonna bring in whatever we can bring in. We're gonna make a snazzy deal, okay, an all-time great deal for a player who's not gonna play this year because his head's fucked up. But the lure of that 6'10" Ben Simmons on the court with Embiid and that kind of height, size, and whatever. Never mind the fact the man's never done shit in the league, Ben Simmons, and he can't shoot, and he's afraid to shoot, and he's afraid to go outside at night. He's afraid to go into a Circle K. I don't know what the guy's problem is. That's desperation. We got to get rid of Harden. That's desperation. What the hell? We might as well take a shot. We'll take a shot at it. And the 76ers are the same way. Fuck the process. Process didn't work. Fuck that. The process was desperation. Oh, my God.
And I just wanted to add, if any team, which I think you're alluding to with the original point, I want to know how new this GM is or executive, because last time I remembered, we had that long jersey of just quarterbacks who didn't work out. And when there's a surefire guy available, I would go out and try to get him. So I don't get it.
Well, what it amounts to, it's a line crossed amongst men who have the upper hand on the athletes. They're never going to take a hit. They're never going to get brain damage. They're never going to have painkillers injected into their systems and end up crippled by the time they're 45. They're not going to have that. They're just going to keep making more money and keep sucking off the tit of the taxpayers. That's who they are. But man, when one owner is out of step and throws $230 million guaranteed at one guy, yeah, there's desperation, but it ain't the Browns organization. The desperation is in the owner saying, man, we got to punish this motherfucker for what he did. Hello, Roger? Yeah, it's us, the other 31 owners. Make sure that Watson doesn't play. Make them pay. God, it's not like fucking Misney. I'll make them pay.
And I'd be willing to bet that it's one of the franchises that thought they were in on Watson, and they're just pissed because he went to
Sour
Cleveland.
grapes. But it's also going to change like it happened in baseball. It was so funny. Free agency, Who would have thought when Andy Messersmith became the first free agent Well, Curt Flood tried, and they shut him down. So the first guy had to be white, just so you understand the way the rules work. Curt Flood was shot down in court, but Andy Messersmith was the first. And who would have thought that from that would blossom these incredible A-Rod kind of deals, the deals that keep players in single places for 200, 250, $300 million, the Mike Trout deals, these types of things. Who would have thought? But in an open market, and I know what they say about the salary cap, but the salary cap is just being manipulated in such a way that, and what will happen if this doesn't work out for the Browns is that they'll go to hell. They're going to put out the same kind of team they put out when we were 1-31. That's what's going to happen. You're going to wind up with a team that's incapable of winning. But there's no in between today. You either go after players, if you want to accuse people of desperation, then all these wide receivers who are signing, for $20 million and more per annum, all of these guys who are making big bucks, it's all trying, it's like the genie's out of the bottle now, and they can't stuff it back in, and they're frustrated. And that's what comes out of NFL executives and owners' mouths. This is not the way we want this. We want control. And that's the biggest fear that this clown, whoever the hell he is, has, is that we can't give DeShaun Watson that kind of power, because the next thing you know, he's going to be telling you who your next coach is. And the next thing you know, they're looking at the Lakers. Yeah.
Every major quarterback will have a contract similar to this. It's just going to happen. It's just they thought they would be able to push it down the line, and it's like the Browns were like, all right, we'll be the first ones. We'll bite the bullet. And now we're getting criticized for that. It's really not, in my opinion, it's not about Deshaun Watson. It's just, hey, these other GMs are like, well, shit, I got a quarterback who's going to want that. But they thought that they were going to be able to get away with, well, hey, nobody else is making that guaranteed. Haha. It's just how it works.
And, again, every team is going to have to deal with this, because once Joe Burrow gets to the point, as one of our viewers is in here, Amsterdam is saying, that's right. Burrow is going to demand. They're all going to demand, and it puts the club in their hands. And that's what bothers the owners.
And there's already reports that the Joe Burrow and Bengals, the contract talks are already getting complicated now.
Well, of course they will. There's, as Jada Pinkett Smith would say, an entanglement here.
Oh my gosh.
It's a reach. Right? Okay. I've been working on that. I just wanted to, I want to embody the spirit of Chris Rock, just to feel what he felt.
Did you see they banned Will Smith for 10 years?
No.
Yeah. From the
banned him from
Oscars
what?
From the Oscars
Academy.
Yeah. I wasn't on to hear your opinion. Can you give me a quick rundown of what your thoughts were?
About Will Smith?
Yeah, just the situation.
Well, I just saw a video that was from 2019 in which Jada Pinkett Smith was doing a video that was streaming on the internet, and she was recording it, and he didn't know. And she put something in his face saying, she has something that's called a Red Round Table. It's a podcast. Mm-hmm. And she says, we're going to be having this great marriage therapist who worked with Will and I. This is back in 2019. And she says, isn't she a great therapist? And she just puts the camera right in his face. And he looks at her and says, you don't understand. You don't do this when you don't tell me that you're going to be streaming like this. He goes, social media is my business. He goes, stop that. I don't want to talk about this. And, and she was the one who was fucking a guy. And I'll say this, Will Smith has a problem. You obviously can't get up and walk that distance and maintain the kind of anger that it would require in front of the world and national television to fly off the handle. That makes Ronnie Harrison look like small fries. All right. So he's got a problem, but I think she's the source of his problem. I think that she is a head case. Her behavior, not only rolling her eyes and trying to get him pumped up, but afterwards, once Chris Rock gets slapped in the face and says, Will Smith just slapped the shit out of me, she's laughing at his joke.
Yeah.
She is a manipulator, and I don't think she's good. And
I'm glad we agree, because at first I was like, you know what? I mean, I'm happy Will stood up for himself, and then I kind of learned more about it, and I was like, oh no, fuck her. I mean, the dude, and allegedly Chris Rock didn't even know that she had the disease. I don't know if that's true or not.
yeah, that is true. Not everybody would know. I mean, the fact is that alopecia is a very common situation. And it runs in women who have certain medical conditions, and it's and not dangerous medical conditions, but something called PCOS, and it is something that catches people when they're young. It's something where, like male pattern baldness. It's like your fucking hair falls out, and And what Jada Pinkett Smith doesn't understand, she's appropriated the space of being a spokesperson for women, all women who have alopecia. But let me tell you something. They're not as pretty as Jada Pinkett Smith. They're not as successful. They're not in movies. They're not all over the place. The average woman who has alopecia is a poor woman who's going through hell and is being shunned by people because she's young and has patches of her hair missing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the real person, not Jada Pinkett Smith. So again, she's using this as a cause, but it isn't hurting her. It's not affecting her.
And on the comedy side of things, this cannot be a trend. You can't get pissed at something somebody says and then go up and slap them. It just cannot happen.
Well, look, I did stand-up comedy when I was younger, and the one thing I've always said about Moohead Radio is I'm going to say what the fuck I feel like saying. And there are some things I don't like to get into because the political climate has just become too angry. And it's gotten to the point where it's a no-win situation. But if you can't make jokes about things, and a lot of humor emanates from pain.
Yep.
And when you do stand-up comedy, you recognize that what moves audiences very much are skewing things and looking at things from a slightly different perspective. And, George Carlin, who is one of my favorite stand-ups, boy, he'd have a hell of a time piecing together an act today. So
I just wanted to add real quick, and I think the worst thing about the whole situation with Jada is her coming out saying, "Oh, I didn't want Will Smith to go up and slap him." And I'm like, that's manipulating.
She's like a tornado that leaves wreckage and death around her and just keeps rolling on. Bad news.
I didn't mean to get off topic.
No, not at all. I understand. It's something that's happening and has happened. The civil case against Deshaun Watson, now it's saying it's unlikely to be resolved in the calendar year 2022. And I'm not ready to bring our attorney back on quite yet, but it's obvious that there is something afoot that is meant, again, like I have been speaking about, to protract things out. And that is not an unusual thing. There are new legal filings that have been filed, and two women have added claims of negligence and gross negligence to two of the civil cases against him. And it's likely that more of the 22 women will do the same thing. and I'll explain it real quickly. Negligence and gross negligence is going to be attempted to be proven based on something that DeShaun Watson's side in the case presented. And that was 18 letters from massage therapists who said that he did nothing wrong when they worked on him. To understand how the legal system works and how everything in the early going, anybody who files something like that, the 18 women, immediately open themselves for questioning, for being deposed. This is what depositions are all about. And once those 18 women step forward, they're going to be called in. They're going to have to testify. And more damaging than that is that it opens another door as to whether DeShaun Watson had sex with any of those 18 people who were writing those glowing letters about him. So this particular step of adding a claim of negligence or gross negligence to two of the civil cases, and likely to more, does two things. It forces DeShaun Watson in his deposition to have to provide the court information as to whether he had sexual relations with any of those 18 women. The reason is the attorney, Tony Busby, for the plaintiffs, the women, wants to be able to prove that going to massage therapists and having sex were things that were linked together in the case of DeShaun Watson, and that by repeating this performance, in essence, and this behavior with other massage therapists, that's where the claims of negligence and gross negligence come from. In other words, well, hell, he just went in there expecting that there would be sex because these other women who worked on him, they were having sex with him. So he figured that's the way it was going to go. And then when it didn't go that way, he tried to make it go that way. What this does is it not only it puts more heat on DeShaun Watson, it also adds to the potential money windfall the women could make if they all, or a large percentage of them, add claims of negligence and gross negligence to their civil suits. And it's another category by which he can be charged for damages. So it's all about money. And that's what it's going to be. Now, here's another thing. On top of these new claims, details of an agreement, between the two parties related to the timing of any trial. The two sides have an agreement not to schedule trials on any of these cases from August 1 through March 1, 2023, thereby helping Watson avoid having to deal with the trials during the football season. That means that these cases might not be resolved until 2023. And then this big proviso, unless they're settled. Well, of course, before this whole thing becomes real, folks, don't expect that this is going to go down to a civil trial. It's going to be a settlement. And I know people... Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, he's playing week 1. DeShaun Watson will, I think, because of how this is dragging out, Roger Goodell has said that he will not go on the commissioner's exempt list, which was my biggest concern. He will be playing week 1. And there's a legitimate chance that he plays this entire season. We could be looking at a suspension or whatever happens. You know, at this point, I'm not going to say anything. But in terms of a disciplinarian action from the NFL, I don't believe at all that it happens this year. That is just my gut feeling and how I'm viewing what's going on right now. I don't think he gets suspended this year.
No, Scott, no comments are ever censored, even with a C, let alone an S, on Moohead Radio.
I just wanted to add too, which Derek, he said it too, and I agree with him all the way. And I was going to say, I know I missed out maybe because we don't have the 13th pick anymore, but for the biggest coffee mug, I don't think Deshaun Watson's going to get suspended at all because it's out of Roger Goodell's hands now, and he's not going to be on the exempt list anymore. So they work through a third party who's going to look at all the details of the case. And I think from the evidence that's out there and how long this has been out there and nothing really major's happened yet, I don't think he's going to be suspended at all.
These women cannot afford to go on through 2023 without a settlement. All right.
Yeah.
But what they're doing is they're adding counts so that if there's more fines, money, settlement offer to be split amongst them, they're finding different ways of working that up. And that is negotiating in a true settlement sense, except that the negotiation is hardball, that it's like, it's going to be very uncomfortable. Deshaun Watson's going to have to acknowledge that he had sex with some of those 18 massage therapists if he did. And if he did, that's going to further tarnish his reputation. So the whole thing is, how uncomfortable can you make something for somebody? That's the first thing. And then how can you rush them to the settlement table before your clients run out of money? That's the way the game's played. So everybody's positioning themselves.
I'm going to steal a point that my friend Kyle made. He said, as far as the disciplinarian side of things, the NFL, the reason why at the end of the day that you won't see any action, and again, this is my opinion as well, if they do suspend him and then later on it comes out that, hey, there's no proof and he's cleared, what's the NFL going to look like for the next situation of an allegation? Because again, as you pointed out, I forget what show it was a while back, there's countless numbers of situations, maybe not identical to this, but similar situations of assault or whatever else. So if the NFL jumps in now and says, nope, you're suspended, and then it plays out legally and he's cleared, it's like, well, the NFL, you have a major blemish on your name on how you handle this stuff.
Well, here's the thing that makes me believe that there will be punishment forthcoming for Deshaun Watson, and it may not have anything to do with the case itself. There is a growing cloud surrounding the NFL. Their PR is going to get hit hard. I like to kind of look at the periphery of things. Former coach Steve Wilkes, Ray Horton, joined Brian Flores' lawsuit against the NFL in alleging racism in hiring practices. So Steve Wilkes, who was the Cardinals head coach for one season in 2018, and this takes on a pattern of one and done. All right.
He was our DC. I forget what year, 2019, 2020.
Right. And Ray Horton, an NFL since 1994, who interviewed for the Titans head coaching job in 2016, they're now part of a lawsuit against the league, the Dolphins, the Broncos, the Giants, the Houston Texans, the Titans, and the Cardinals, plus 26 other John Doe NFL teams. The Titans, Cardinals, and Texans were added to the suit as part of the amendment as well. This goes on, and I can tell you this. The NFL has been guilty with a capital G of paying lip service in the whole situation of minority head coach hiring, and there doesn't seem to be a rhyme or a reason why certain people are hired and then dismissed so quickly. Other people who seemingly have good records where they are and doing a good job, in many cases don't even get interviewed because they basically interviewed safe people they knew they could pass up on. The NFL is going to have to face more from this lawsuit, but that's not all. The NFL has been warned to improve treatment of women, workplace culture by attorneys general of 6 different states in the United States. The letter was signed by Alopecia James, the Attorney General of New York State, where the league is headquartered, as well as Attorneys General of Illinois, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Oregon, and Washington State. Now, here's the real problem with this. You have the Washington Commanders and Daniel Snyder and his dumpster fire of an organization, all right, being literally accused by multiple people that sexual harassment and unwarranted touching and things of that nature were going on within that organization. The letter in this case also cites a New York Times article that included allegations from more than 30 former NFL employees who said they experienced problems, including unwanted touching from male bosses, attending parties where prostitutes were hired, being passed over for promotions based on their gender, and being pushed out for complaining about discrimination. So the league is going to be struggling against more than just Deshaun Watson and his image, but the image of the league itself. And it's not going to be just about black and white. It's going to be gender-based as well. So the league is going to try to give the appearance, as they always have, of being above it all, and we don't tolerate this. We have a zero tolerance policy in place. And for that reason, I could see Deshaun Watson getting a longer suspension because of these other peripheral issues that the league is facing. And they just don't want to start up with the powder keg. There was a day when they could, the whole Rooney Rule was just such bizarre pacification. I mean, it was a joke. And the follow-up was a bigger joke because the same shit just kept happening. Now they're going to have to take this shit seriously. So I see trouble for the league. A lot of their off season is going to be dominated by, and they got to get rid of Daniel Snyder in Washington. The guy's bad news.
Oh, yeah.
This has been carrying on, and it's not just this accusation. There have been so many accusations thrown at that organization, and it's a bozo organization. I mean, in a harmful way to people, it's a bozo organization.
And I was talking to some Dolphins fans last night, and they think that their owner, because of the whole paying to lose, to paying to tank, they think that that's a real thing, which I was kind of surprised to hear, because I heard about it, obviously, like everybody else, but I didn't think it would get serious, but they think it's going to. So, I mean, we'll see with that.
Yeah, I mean, but this is all backdrop. So if you start hearing the cries of the people who support the Jane Does and pointing to these additional charges, just understand that it's all based on the original charge. What they're trying to do is they're trying to show a correlation between what Deshaun Watson thought about all female massage givers, and that he equated that in his mind, and that is why he recklessly forced people into certain behavior. That is their case. It will never be tried. It will be settled. So it's the first thing that I was ever told by an attorney when I was sued in business. And that is, they ask you questions, answer concisely. Do not go broadening your answer, because that's just like increasing the net of where they can, in the area where they can go fishing. You bring up something that is unrelated to a question you're asked, it gives them another path of questioning. This is what depositions are, folks. And if you can keep a tight asshole when you're being deposed, then you don't lead them to more extraneous arguments that protract all of this stuff out. This is the way it works. So we'll see what happens. It doesn't mean that, oh my God, he's in deeper shit now. What it means is every action has a counteraction, and you want to stand up and get letters written by 18 massage therapists. I sure as hell hope for Deshaun Watson's benefit that his attorney is aware of what the relationship between his client and those 18 women were, because that could be damaging potentially if it went the other way. That's all it means.
So you think that this season, do you think Watson will be suspended, or you think next season, or what's your thoughts?
My feeling is that the NFL is going to have to see how this thing progresses. And it all depends on the heat that the league is taking from multiple directions. If by the football season, if they're no closer to a settlement on this case, it would be they would be hard pressed to just throw a punishment at somebody for something that hasn't been litigated or hasn't been settled. If there's a settlement made, the league can say, okay, that is how he took care of the victims of his behavior. But now he has to take care of the victim, being the NFL, of how it has tarnished the reputation of the league. And that's where they'll say, we'll suspend you for X number of games based on that. So I would tend to think that until there is a settlement made, they have no basis for, no legal basis for suspending somebody when they're neither litigated nor there has been a settlement in a civil case. So, yeah, it's going to take time. All right. Here's something that was mind-boggling to me. And after I do this story, I do want to talk about Christian Watkins and Treylon Burks.
Okay, good. I'm glad we're talking about this, because this is what I've been hyped up to talk about.
Yeah, well, let's start it now then, because time flies when you're having fun. Yeah, the wide receiver position for the Browns. There are some people who insist that we're going for a defensive tackle at that position. There's a name, and the name is eluding me right now, that is coming up more often than not. I don't know.
Travis Jones, maybe?
No, I'm trying to.
Logan Hall?
Perion Winfrey?
That's one. Perion Winfrey is one. There's another guy, though, who I've never even heard of, to be honest with you.
DeMarvin
But that
Leal?
doesn't mean anything, because I'm...
Fedarion Mathis?
No. This is going to take forever, especially with Topaz hosting the program. So, I don't know. But the issue is to whether you want a defensive tackle or a wide receiver. The wide receiver situation, Brandon Cooks just agreed to a 2-year contract with the Texans. So we thought that was not going to happen for the Browns anyway. Would have been nice. Didn't happen. What do you think? You got a bunch of wide receivers. Some people are just saying Dotson or Watkins, and they're assuming that Treylon Burks will be already gone long before a time when the Browns could even try to scramble up a few spots from 44 to pick somebody up. What do you think, Derek?
Yeah, I don't. There's a lot of people who are seeming to think that Treylon Burks is going to be a higher pick than people are thinking right now? I personally don't think so, because at this
Yeah.
time in the years when guys get hyped up, Christian Watson is the guy who's kind of been hyped up recently. I don't think, my personal opinion, I'm not a big fan of his compared to some of the others.
Yeah.
I just think he's very, very raw. I don't love that. Um, I'm looking at, and I would love Jahan Dotson. I think he's going to be great. I don't think he's going to be on our table as far as options. When it comes to the others, Treylon Burks, I've been going back and kind of watching a lot of his tape because we know the combine was subpar, which kind of surprised me, to be honest with you. Um, Obviously his best strengths are his speed at his size, but again, the combine was kind of like
Didn't
maybe
show
not
it.
as
Yeah.
much. Yeah. However, going back and kind of rethinking things and looking at it where we're at now, I think that because everything that I've heard is they loved Treylon Burks, even at 13.
Mhm.
So I think that what they're looking at right now is, hey, we got our route runner in Amari Cooper. And that was where I was thinking with our receiver pick. But Burks is somebody who you get the ball in his hands and he's literally a running back. Like, he is a monster with the ball in his hands. He's got, for his size on the field, his speed does look good on tape. And going off of the tape, great contested catch guy, great hands, strong. I think he fits what the Browns would look for in a Deebo Samuel type of role. His route tree is not great, but bringing him in as a gadget, I know I say gadget guy, but I mean more of a specific role kind of guy. I like that a lot. That's just my opinion. The other guy, quickly, I wanted to talk about just because it's being mentioned a lot, and I've also done a lot more reading into him, is Skye Moore out of Western Michigan.
Yeah.
So Skye Moore is somebody who I liked at first, but I didn't really know a whole lot about. So, like I said, I went back and watched more. Here's the thing about Skye Moore. I don't love him developing into number one. A lot of people think he can. I don't. That's just me personally. However, I think he is a fantastic number two receiver. His release is really good. He sells routes to perfection. Now, what I mean is basically when you're getting off the line of scrimmage on your release, the DB's job is very, very hard. So what Skye Moore does is, like, if he's cutting inside, he'll sell you outside and he'll do a hell of a job doing it. At the NFL level, that's great. What I love most about him is his burst speed. He's a very crisp route runner, but if the ball is a little bit ahead or whatever, he has that burst speed to go get the ball. I like him a lot.
You feel that he's a 1 in the MAC and a 2 in the NFL.
Yes. That's, yeah. And his
Nice.
size is kind of one of the weaknesses that people talk about. He plays bigger than he is, similar to like Garrett Wilson. I just don't know what his development looks like. Similar to an Olave. Can he develop into the number one?
And I was gonna add, I like Skye Moore a lot too, because Skye Moore, he's a guy, and he's 5'9" and like 7/8, or basically 5'10".
Yeah, he's 5'9", 195 pounds.
Yeah, and people like say like, oh, his size, but yes, he's shorter, but he's a big dude at 5'9". And a good thing about him is he has probably some of the best hands in the draft. Him and Pickens, I don't remember the number, but he had single digit number of drops with over 100 catches in his
he had
collegiate
a ton of
career.
receptions.
Yeah, so he has reliable hands, and I think he would be a great fit in the slot. And I know you read about Pickens off the field concerns, but if we could get him, and if he fits what the Browns want, I really think he could be a really good fit at the X, because yes, DPJ is good and he can maybe develop, but Pickens, he's a guy who can win in the contested catches, and he's like a Jamar Chase, like an Antonio Brown, who at the catch point positions himself really well to get the balls and to catch. And I just wanted to add real quick about Christian Watson. I know he's getting a lot of hype right now, but he's a guy that no thank you. He was at the FBS level, and there he struggled in the contested catches. Out of 40, I think he only had 7 catches that he made in the contested catches when he should be 25, 26. He should be near 50% with lower competition. And he's just really
And
raw. And
and he played with Trey Lance, which you can talk about the quarterbacks at a smaller school, but Trey Lance is not some scrub to be playing with.
yeah,
And also, real
Right.
quick, I think Pickens is going to the Packers. Per
yeah,
everything
that's
that I've
true.
heard, that seems like it's happening. So I think that's off the table, even if it was in question already.
The guy I was talking about is Travis Jones from UConn, and the defensive tackle.
Yeah.
And honestly, UConn really, and it's not like he jumped off the tape on him. I don't understand why you would go with a player like that from a lesser school. I don't even know. I mean, UConn is a women's basketball school. I mean, honestly, I don't see that. It's like running.
They'll go end. They won't go deep tackle. If anything, they'll take Drake Jackson out of USC, who I
Right.
like a lot.
Right. So, so to me, Watkins is, I agree, he's the Baskin Robbins flavor of the week, but this is what they do to keep interest up and going and keep us moving. I would say that if there's always somebody who, wide receivers who drop, and it can be for any number of reasons. Treylon Burks gave himself a good reason with his combine performance. So he might very well drop down.
I'm going to be honest. If I had to say today, I think he's the pick. And I think we move up a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think most people believe that the Browns, if they have their radar set on one guy and he's still available, they're going to do everything they can to move up, to get their guy. So I don't see the Browns just standing pat at 44 unless their guy already got plucked out and they have a plan B that they got to go to. I don't know. But I think it's interesting from the standpoint that almost everybody that I talk to, I'm not hearing defensive tackle, I'm hearing edges, but almost every person that I talk to says the longer it drags on with Clowney, the better odds are he's coming back to Cleveland.
Yeah.
That means he's not hearing what he wants to hear from other sources.
And keep in mind, as far as the defensive tackle, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no.
Again, the longer things go on, the cheaper the deals get. You still have Sheldon Richardson, who, yes, I know we have history with, but, now that things have changed up, I wouldn't be surprised. The two Chicago boys, Akeem Hicks and Eddie Goldman, are also still out there. So you could be looking at an Andrew Berry 1-year prove-it deal with any one of those guys.
Right. And, for me, the money's on the table, I believe, right now, 2 years, $24 million. And some sources have said that there is even a third year on the offer to Clowney. And, they're just riding out what they're riding out. But I tend to believe that if it hasn't happened now, it's not going to, him going to another team, or it's that he just simply does not want to come back to Cleveland.
I think it's more of the camp thing. The people that I know who, hear things directly, it's all about, and I don't understand why Jadeveon Clowney can't just come back and say, yeah, hey, I really don't want to participate. I don't know why the Browns couldn't say, okay, maybe there's a rule on that I can't remember, but he's playing this waiting game. And yeah, what you said is right. The longer, he's coming back. The Browns have the best offer and the best situation for him.
And I see that there's a better chance of him coming back than Jarvis Landry.
Yeah, Landry wants money still.
And I just don't see, that would be kind of the stiff upper lip, bite your lip, and take whatever punishment you have to take. If the Browns offer is the best offer for Jarvis Landry, why go anywhere else when they have a top flight quarterback coming in? But again, he's pushing 30. His body's beat up. And the last 2 years, his body has rung up some damage, and he started missing time. And it was obvious that he should have missed more time. And it's really funny. He played through more hurt and injury than Baker Mayfield did. And he never said a damn thing about it because he's just stoic that way. But you could tell by the way he was running with the ball, he was trying to get down the ground as quickly as possible to protect parts of his body that were hurt. And, he can run patterns in his sleep. If he's healthy, he would be a good guy to pick up short term. But I think that's the way people around the league are looking at him, is a great veteran leader, a guy who can get some things done, but he's not a long-term investment.
And they want Will Fuller will be a Cleveland Brown at some point. And
you may be right about that too. I mean,
that's the competition he's really looking against. And Will Fuller's not going to be expensive. Jarvis, you're going to have to pay a little bit more.
The other thing that I am a little bit wondering about is Donovan Peoples-Jones. And what is the belief within the Browns organization of, is he going to become, if we bring in these wide receivers that we're talking about, is he going to A, become expendable, or B, become the new Hollywood Higgins, who is the guy who comes off the bench?
No, I'm not saying I know anything, but what I've heard is that they are really high on him and they like him at that X receiver role. So I think it's just a matter of, who else they bring in around him. And if a guy like a Treylon Burks falls, who you can use more in a role similar to that, I don't know. I think what I hear is they like him, but subject to change, I guess, depending on what else happens.
Yeah. Two things before I go real quickly. You want, there are people who say, how come you don't talk about the Guardians? And yesterday's game would convince you not to watch them. I mean, it's like, let's put Ahmed Rosario out there in the outfield again and let him fuck up like he did last year. And he didn't let anybody down. He fucked it up for everybody. And, the Guardians traded Bradley Zimmer, another wasted exercise. And we sit there and we watch Witt Jr. get the game-winning double. And it's like Francisco Lindor and Ramirez. That's what we've developed. Do you know how long that's been now? There's nobody developed from this minor league organization who's worth a shit. I mean position players. I'm not talking about pitching. I'm talking about people who play the corner infield positions. No first baseman, no third baseman, no corner outfielders. We're not developing anything. And every time I see an organization develop a young player who looks like they're going to be something, it's like, well, then why can't the Guardians do the same thing? So trading Bradley Zimmer was like when we traded Russell Branyan. We had these dreams, these pious dreams of how great, Bradley Zimmer would be because he could run like a deer and he had a swiftness in his bat, but he never could figure out how to barrel up the ball, and he struck out 40% of the time, 40% of the time he came up to home plate. And then he got hurt. And, he did what happens to like the Lenny Dykstras of the world who want to run through a wall to make a play. I'm trying to remember the guy. If his name just flew in and out of my Rocco Baldelli, the guy who played for the Tampa Bay Rays and later managed them. That was a guy who was supposed to be a great player, and he injured himself running into walls, getting to fly balls. That's Bradley Zimmer, and it literally screwed up his mechanics, and he never did anything. So that's what I want to say about that. The final thing is that 56 years old is generally too young to be having major heart surgery. But former Denver Broncos offensive lineman Mark Schlereth, who is a guy who does sports broadcasting. He is a former player for the Broncos, and he is recovering. And the surgery was not elaborated upon what was happening with him, but another reminder of what it is to play this game and why you got to make your money up front for you, your family, for your loved ones, to take care of people, all of that. And, it's just another name that comes up. It's not CTE, but that's not the only thing that happens to football players. Their bodies break down, and it is not unusual because of the amount of calories that they consume when they're players, when they're working and pumping iron, and God knows what else they have done to make these people stronger and bigger. That heart trouble is another thing that follows NFL football players. It is really too bad, and I wish him well. Does a nice job as a broadcaster. And that's it. For now, it's Friday. We're going to be back on the short turn on Monday, and we'll be talking about all kinds of things that break between now and then. Derek, thank you. Peter, thank you. And thank you for everybody, to everyone for tuning in. And we'll have this up immediately on YouTube, and I'll have links for you on Twitter. Until Monday, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.